If you had told me a year ago that the biggest mistake of my life would be trusting my parents, I would have laughed in your face. I was raised to believe that family meant safety, sacrifice, unconditional love. But all it took was one moment, one set of keys I never got, to unravel everything I thought I knew. Started as a small, sweet idea. I was 29, working full-time as a project engineer, finally earning a decent salary but still nowhere near enough to buy a house in Austin's housing market. My rent was skyrocketing every year and saving up for a down payment felt like chasing a mirage. One evening over dinner my mom stirred her soup, looked up at me with that familiar concerned smile and said, "Sweetheart, why don't you build a little guest house in the backyard? You've always loved designing spaces. Could be yours forever. Your dad and I talked, we'd love for you to have that security." My heart swelled. For once I thought life was falling into place. My dad even joked, "We'll finally get to see you more often. It's a win-win." I remember laughing, already picturing where I'd plant my succulents and hang my string lights. We agreed on the southwest corner of the yard, where the sun hit just right in the afternoons. I started sketching designs that same night. Within a week I had contacted contractors, scheduled site visits, and emptied half my savings into the initial deposit. Every weekend, every holiday, every free moment I was out there, boots in the dirt, clipboard in hand, double-checking tile deliveries and HVAC specs. I chose everything from the custom cabinets to the matte black sink faucet myself. I picked out a deep olive green paint for the accent wall in the bedroom. It reminded me of peace, of something grounded. Something mine. I didn't cut corners. I didn't just help with the costs, I paid for it all. Down to the light fixtures. When my friends asked why I wasn't out enjoying life more, I said, "I'm investing in my future." And I believed it. With every nail that went into the frame, I imagined the day I'd move in, light a candle and finally have a space that was mine. Not rented. Not temporary. A home. My parents were supportive, or so I thought. My mom brought out lemonade to the contractors. My dad offered to help dig the foundation lines. There were jokes around the dinner table about how they'd be next-door neighbors soon. We even took a selfie in front of the frame when the walls went up. I thought that meant something. I was so sure. By mid-fall, the guest house was done. It was beautiful. Cozy. A dream in 460 square feet. My contractors joked that I should go into interior design. That morning, I packed my car with clothes, my espresso machine, and the throw blanket my grandma had knitted before she passed. I was finally moving in. I knocked on the back door of the main house, smiling. Mom opened it with a strange look on her face, like she was expecting a fight. Dad stood behind her holding 2 bags. My bags. "Emily," he said calmly, "we've decided Sophie will be moving into the guest house instead. She really needs a place right now." I blinked. I literally blinked like I hadn't heard him right. "What?" "She just got engaged," Mom chimed in, "and her apartment is so cramped. You'll figure something out. You're still young. No kids. No commitments." I didn't even get the chance to drop my keys on the counter. I didn't get a tour, a welcome, a hug. I got an eviction from something I hadn't even moved into yet. I glanced past them and saw Sophie, perfect hair, manicured nails, leaning casually against the kitchen island. She didn't look the least bit guilty. "You don't even live here," I said, my voice quiet, cracking. "I built that house. Every cent. That's my home." Sophie shrugged. "Well, it's not like you were paying rent or anything." I felt the room tip sideways. I almost laughed, not because anything was funny but because I couldn't believe how insane this was. I had poured everything into that house. Not just money, not just time, but hope, identity, roots. And in one sentence they ripped it all away. I stood there, bags in hand, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Waiting, just waiting, for someone to say it was a joke. For someone to smile and say, "Gotcha." But no one did. So I walked. Out the door. Off the property. Down the driveway I used to ride my bike on as a kid. The guest house stood behind me like a monument to my own stupidity. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. "Don't be dramatic. Family helps family." I didn't respond. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just kept walking. 3 days. That's how long it took for the numbness to fade and the rage to seep in. I crashed on Rachel's couch that night, her spare blanket scratchy and thin, my suitcase still zipped, untouched. I didn't speak much. just stared at the ceiling and replayed their words, over and over like a broken reel. Sophie needs it more. You're still young. Like I was some unclaimed space waiting to be filled with obligation. Like everything I'd worked for didn't matter because I didn't come with a husband or a baby. On the third morning I drove back. Not to confront them, God no, I knew better. But because I needed something I'd left in the storage bench under the window of my guest house. A stack of architectural sketches I didn't want them touching. I pulled up to the curb and sat for a moment. The house looked the same. Same white shutters, same oak tree leaning over the mailbox. But it felt like a stranger's property now. The place I'd once called home was just coordinates on a map. I walked around the side gate, the gravel crunching under my boots like brittle bones. The guest house stood there, clean, perfect, staged. Sophie had already moved in. Her car was parked out front. There was a home sweet home doormat that definitely wasn't mine and a pale pink wreath hanging on the door like this was some Hallmark movie. I almost turned around. But I was too angry, too stubborn. I knocked once. Sophie opened the door wearing yoga pants and a full face of makeup. "What do you want?" she said like I was the intruder. "I need the drawings. They're in the bench by the window. That's all." She stepped aside with an exaggerated sigh. "Make it quick. I have a Zoom call in 10. The place was different. Not dramatically but enough. My olive green wall had been painted beige. The copper sconces I'd picked out were replaced with brushed gold ones, tacky cheap knockoffs. My shelves were gone, replaced by a white IKEA bookcase half filled with faux plants and influencer memoirs. I grabbed my things, turned to leave, then paused. "Did you ever plan this with them?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. Sophie tilted her head. "Plan what?" "Taking the house." She rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. Mom and Dad offered. I didn't ask. But you didn't say no either." "Why would I?" she snapped. "You weren't even living here. You just built it and hovered. Besides, I'm getting married. I need a place. You don't." "I paid for this place," I said quietly. "All of it. And you gifted it to the family when you built it on their land. That's how property works, Em. Didn't you ever learn that in engineering school?" I should have left. I should have walked away. But I couldn't. "You think I built it for fun?" I asked. "For practice? That was my home. I spent everything I had making it right." She laughed. "Then maybe you should have been smart enough to get it in writing." I stared at her, this girl I used to braid hair with, build blanket forts beside, and it hit me, she didn't just not care. She never had. The minute she realized she could take what I had, she didn't hesitate. Because deep down she never saw it as mine to begin with. "You're not a victim, Emily," she added, like she was granting me some twisted form of clarity. "You're just bad at playing the game." I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I walked past the garden I'd helped replant last spring, past the backyard lights I strung up for Mom's retirement party, past the back porch where I used to sit with Dad in the evenings and talk about nothing. I got in my car, hands shaking. Before I could drive off, my phone lit up. A message from Dad: "You're always welcome here, but don't make this about money. It's a family decision." I stared at the screen. Then I blocked his number. That night I opened my laptop. I started searching property law in Texas, reading forums, watching YouTube videos about construction rights on family land. The more I read, the more sick I felt. Technically, legally, they were right. The house sat on their land. And unless I had a contract, a deed, anything in writing, I had no claim. No proof. No protection. I had nothing but the receipts. The ones I paid. The ones no one else cared about. I was locked out of a house I built. And no one was coming to give me back the key. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning I drove to the county clerk's office, heart thudding in my chest like a ticking bomb. I told the woman at the counter I needed property records for the Dawson residence, my childhood home and now the burial site of everything I thought was safe. She clicked through a few screens, then printed out a short stack of papers. I read the title lines slowly, willing the names to change. But there it was in black ink on crisp legal white: Tom and Margaret Dawson. Sole owners. Of everything. The main house. The land. And now, officially, the new accessory dwelling unit in the backyard. The guest house. My house. My money. Their name. I stood there frozen, paper trembling in my hands. "Is something wrong?" the clerk asked, her voice kind. I shook my head, smiled politely, and walked out like I wasn't unraveling inside. Once I got into my car, I didn't even turn the engine on. I just sat there, the records in my lap, and laughed. A bitter, breathless sound I didn't recognize as my own. I had no claim. No contract. No agreement. Nothing in writing. Just 10,000 texts about tile samples and shipping delays, blueprints with my name on them, and a mountain of bank statements showing the money trail. But none of that mattered if the land wasn't mine. And it never was. On a legal level, they hadn't done anything wrong. That was the worst part. They hadn't stolen my home. They'd simply let me build it, fund it, furnish it, then decided it was never mine to begin with. When I got back to Rachel's apartment, I spread the documents out across her kitchen table. She walked in halfway through and stopped in her tracks. "Emily, what is all this?" "Proof," I said. "Or lack of it." I handed her the records. She flipped through the pages, her expression darkening. "You're kidding me. This is a joke, right?" "I wish." I reached for my laptop and pulled up my financial spreadsheet. Every receipt, invoice, email confirmation, credit card transaction. Over $94,000 spent in 10 months. Down to the last screw. I even found the Venmo log where I paid Dad $1,200 for what he claimed was land use prep and maintenance. He said it was for grading the backyard. I was such an idiot. "You have to confront them," Rachel said. "No. I already know what they'll say. We never promised you anything in writing. It was a family project." "Then get a lawyer. At least find out if there's anything you can do." I didn't respond. I was already ahead of her. That night I emailed a local property attorney. 2 days later we had a call. I explained everything, what I paid for, what they said, what I built. She listened carefully, then asked one question that made my stomach flip. "Do you have anything in writing that states the house was to be yours?" Silence. "Not exactly," I finally said. "Just messages. Conversations. Verbal promises. Unfortunately, that's not enough. Without a written agreement, the structure defaults to the landowner. And in this case, that's them. Even if I paid for it? Even then." I hung up the call in a daze. I felt hollow. Like someone had reached inside me and pulled out the part that still believed in fairness. I thought back to that afternoon last spring when Dad and I sat on the porch drinking sweet tea, his arm casually draped over the chair beside him. I told him I'd added soundproofing insulation to the guest house so it'd feel more private. He smiled and said, "You really thought of everything, kiddo." I had. Except for protecting myself. I wanted to scream. Instead, I closed my laptop, packed the documents into a folder, and slid it under Rachel's couch. Later that week she came home holding her phone like it was toxic. "Have you seen this?" she asked. He turned the screen to me. My stomach sank. Sophie had posted a house tour on TikTok. Smiling, twirling, pointing at all the details I had chosen. My tiles. My walls. My layout. "New beginnings, 2 hearts," the caption read. "So grateful for Mom and Dad for gifting us this beautiful space to start our life together. We are so blessed." I stared at the screen, pulse pounding. She had called it a gift. Like I had never existed. I clicked on the video again. And there, at the end of the clip, was my custom olive green couch. The one I had ordered from a local craftsman, paid extra to rush. My initials were still stitched on the underside. She didn't even bother to remove the tags. I stood up. "I'm done," I said. "No more being quiet. No more taking it." Rachel nodded. "What are you going to do?" I looked her in the eye. "I'm going to tell the world exactly what they did." By the time I finished watching Sophie's video for the 5th time, my hands were shaking. It wasn't just the smiling tour, or her chirpy voice as she panned across my kitchen island. It was the absolute audacity of pretending she had been given something that never belonged to her. That she had inherited a gift of love, when all she really did was wait for someone else to finish building it. "We're just so blessed," she said at the end, standing on the back porch I'd spent 3 weekends sanding and staining. "Family is everything." The video had 83,000 views. And counting. The comments were a nightmare. "Your parents are amazing. This space is gorgeous. How lucky to have such supportive family. God, I wish I had a guest house like this from my mom and dad, pleading face. One of the top comments read, "Your sister must be fuming, Elmo, grinning, squinting face. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my laptop, opened a new tab and typed, r/m asshole. I hesitated for a full minute. My cursor blinked like it was daring me. Then I wrote the title, E for expecting to live in the guest house I spent $94,000 building on my parents' property. And I told everything. From the moment Mom suggested the idea, to the bags waiting for me at the door. I listed the costs, the labor, the details, down to the custom shelving and the tiles I imported from New Mexico. I included the texts, the emails, even screenshots of my bank transfers. I didn't name names. I didn't post pictures. But I laid it all out like a legal case. And then I hit post. I didn't think much of it. Reddit was a big place. I figured a few strangers might weigh in, offer some perspective, tell me I was being petty, or maybe that I was justified. I wasn't ready for what came next. Within an hour, it hit the front page. By the end of the night, it had over 22,000 upvotes. And hundreds of awards. Comments poured in by the minute. Not the asshole. Sue them. Your sister's entitled and your parents are manipulative. Cut them off. You built that house. You deserve better. Some users even tracked down Sophie's video without me ever linking it. A few noticed the couch was custom and recognized the design from a Texas-based craftsman. Suddenly, her TikTok was flooded with a very different kind of attention. You didn't build this. So, you just stole your sister's home? Girl, you better turn off the comments before the internet turns on you. I didn't post again that night. I just watched. Watched as the internet became the voice I hadn't been able to summon. Watched as Sophie's comment section turned into a firestorm. The next day, Rachel woke me up holding her phone like it was radioactive. She went live, she said. Sophie. Yeah. About you. I sat up slowly. Show me. Rachel pulled up the stream recording. Sophie sat in the guest house, my guest house, wearing a cropped cardigan, fake tears pooling in the corners of her lashes. I didn't ask for this hate, she sniffed. People don't understand the full story. My sister. She always acted like everything was hers. Just because she helped build something doesn't mean it belongs to her. I stared at the screen. Helped. My parents let her build it, Sophie continued, because they wanted to give me a safe place to start my life. She wasn't even paying rent. At all. She just assumed it was hers. Then came the part that twisted the knife. She's always been like this, Sophie said. Always thinks money equals love. That if she spends, she owns you. Oh my God, I muttered. Rachel's eyes narrowed. She's framing you like you're some bitter, rich sister who tried to buy your way into the family. And people are buying it. Not all of them, Rachel said. You still have the receipts. And now you've got the court of public opinion. That night, Sophie's video got picked up by a reaction channel on YouTube. Then another. Then a podcast. Commentators debated whether building something on your parents' land gives you the right to claim it. Lawyers weighed in. Psychologists. Reddit exploded again. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was everyone's story. People wrote in. Stories of favoritism, of manipulation, of giving too much and getting nothing back. I received DMs from strangers. Some offering legal advice, some offering sympathy. One woman messaged me, my brother stole the business I built for my dad. Your story feels like mine. Please don't let them get away with it. I didn't respond to most of them, but I read every word. Everyone. And I felt something strange stir in me, not hope. Not yet. But clarity. Sophie had made one fatal mistake. He tried to own the narrative. But now I was taking it back. I didn't sleep that night either. Not from anger this time, but from something colder. Focus. While Sophie was crying on live streams and flipping the script, I was building my own. Quietly. Carefully. Like I'd built that house. With precision. With intent. And this time with evidence. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done being erased. By morning I had drafted a second Reddit post. This one wasn't a question. It was a statement. Here's what really happened. I laid it all out. Not in rage but in detail. I attached redacted versions of my payment records, bank transfers and receipts. I uploaded blueprints with my name and signature and screen grabs of text messages. Ones where Mom thanked me for taking care of the finances, and where Dad said, don't worry about ownership stuff. We're family. You're safe. The final image was of my original material budget, scrawled with Sophie's comment from months ago. You're so extra with this stuff. Oh, I could never care that much about backsplash. I added a short caption. They let me believe it was mine. Until it was convenient for it not to be. Now they say I'm selfish for wanting it back. This is what happens when you mistake silence for consent. I posted it under my same username. Within 2 hours it had more views than the original. Subreddits reposted it. Twitter got hold of it. A lawyer on TikTok did a breakdown on why Emily got screwed, legally, not ethically. Another influencer posted, that olive green couch girl is my Roman Empire. It was surreal. But the moment that hit hardest came in the form of a simple DM from a stranger named Mallory. I gave my parents my wedding money to help them keep their house. When they sold it 2 years later, they didn't give me a dime. Said it was their house, their choice. You're not alone. Thousands of others echoed that pain. My inbox became a confessional. And the weirdest part? I didn't feel buried by it. I felt seen. Like the internet had built a scaffolding around me I didn't know I needed. Not to make me famous. Just to hold me up for once. A few days later I got an email from someone named Blake Harmon. Property attorney. He'd seen the post, recognized some of the issues, and offered to review my case pro bono. Just to see if there was a sliver of leverage I hadn't found. We met in a tiny office off South Lamar, the walls lined with casebooks and Texas law posters. He wore tortoise-shell glasses and spoke like someone who'd had his optimism beaten out but kept the sarcasm. I liked him immediately. Technically, he said after reading through the file, you're screwed. I laughed once, sharp. You don't say. But, he leaned forward, if we can prove verbal agreement with financial follow-through, and if they've benefited in any way from your upgrades, for example property value increase or rental benefit, we might have a shot at unjust enrichment. I blinked. That's a real thing? Absolutely. Texas law doesn't reward people for profiting off others' good faith. And if we file a lien, at the very least they can't sell that property without dealing with you first. I sat back in my chair. It wasn't a win, but it was a move. And that was more than I'd had in weeks. On the way home my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I hadn't blocked yet. Mom, we saw what you posted. Can we talk? This has gotten out of hand. You're humiliating the family. I stared at it for a long time. Then typed back. You did that when you gave away my house. I hit send and blocked the number. That night I opened TikTok, not Sophie's feed but my own. I recorded a short video. No makeup. No filters. Just me sitting on Rachel's couch, my voice calm. Hi, I'm Emily. I built a house in my parents' backyard. I paid for it. Every inch. When it was done they gave it to my sister. He calls it a gift. I call it a lesson. I paused, let that sit. Then I ended with, this is what happens when you don't protect yourself. So protect yourself. Even from family. I posted it and turned off my phone. By morning it had 2 million views. The world was watching now. And I wasn't afraid to let them. There's something cruel about memory. It doesn't just bring back the good stuff. It drags along everything you tried to bury. That night after my video went viral I couldn't sleep again. But this time it wasn't anxiety keeping me up. It was grief. Grief for the version of my family I thought I had. For the home I thought I'd built. For the girl who spent her whole life giving without ever asking what she'd get in return. I stared at the ceiling and remembered things they probably forgot. Like the summer I turned 16 and spent every weekend at the hospital while Dad recovered from his bypass surgery. Sophie had a beach trip planned with friends and Mom said she needed the break. I made sure Dad's bed was clean, reminded the nurses about his meds, even shaved his face when his hands were too shaky. The doctors thought I was his daughter and his nurse. He joked about it once. I laughed. Now it doesn't feel so funny. I remembered the night Mom had that bad fall in the garden. Sophie didn't pick up her phone. It was me who left work early, drove 40 minutes in traffic and stayed up with her until 3 a.m. icing her ankle and helping her to the bathroom. The next morning she told me, "You're so dependable, like a second pair of hands." I didn't mind then. I thought being the reliable one meant something. That one day it would count. I remembered college. I got into MIT. Full ride. A chance to leave to start fresh. But Dad's heart condition flared up again and they asked me to stay closer. "It'd be nice to have one daughter who doesn't fly off to Europe every summer," he said, glancing at Sophie's Instagram. So I went to UT Austin. Still a great school. But not my dream. Not that they ever asked. When Sophie got her business degree and still couldn't hold a job, they let her move back in. She bounced from Etsy store to MLM to online coaching. I helped build her first website. Designed her logo. He never paid me. Not even a thank you. But she got a brand deal out of it, so that was something, I guess. The house. The guest house. That was supposed to be my first yes to myself. After years of putting them first, of cleaning up messes and covering bills and being the one who always showed up, I wanted one small space that was mine. 460 square feet. And even that was too much, apparently. They took it like it was theirs all along. Like everything I'd ever given was just owed. Like all the sacrifices didn't matter because I didn't have a husband or a baby or a diamond ring to validate my worth. Because I wasn't Sophie. But here's what they don't know. I never wanted to be Sophie. I just wanted to matter in a way they couldn't take back. Rachel once said, "You carry your family like it's a badge. But I think they wear you like a backup plan." At the time I shrugged it off. Now I think she was right. When I finally fell asleep that night, I dreamed of the guest house again, but it was empty. Walls stripped. Lights flickering. Silent. Like a hollow shell of something that was supposed to be full of life. Like me. The next morning I opened my email and saw one from a local reporter. She wanted to write a piece. Not gossip. Not drama. But a human interest story. About family, property, and what it means to be owed something. I stared at her signature block, debating. Was I ready to go that public? To put my face to this whole mess? To let people see the person behind the green couch in the Reddit post? And then I thought, if I didn't, Sophie's version would win. And all those memories, all that pain, all that invisible labor I carried for years, it would vanish. Just like everything else. I typed one sentence back. Yes. But only if I get to tell it my way. Because for once, my story wasn't going to be a side note in someone else's spotlight. It was time they remembered everything they'd forgotten. Especially me. It took Sophie exactly 48 hours to strike back. The moment the article went live, she built it, they took it. One woman's fight for the home her family claimed. The internet caught fire again. The journalist had done her homework. She didn't use real names, but the quotes were mine, the details unmistakable. She talked about daughters who sacrificed, families who rewrote history, and the invisible labor women give in exchange for love they rarely get back. I expected Sophie to ignore it, maybe play victim again, or go quiet like she always did when things got complicated. But this time she doubled down. She went live. And this time it wasn't tears and soft lighting. It was fury. "I can't stay silent anymore," she said, her voice shaking with carefully controlled rage. "I've been painted as some manipulative brat who stole from my sister. But that's not what happened. That's never what happened." He gestured to the couch. "My couch. People forget this house is on our parents' property. They offered it to me. I didn't demand it. I didn't scheme. I didn't steal. Emily just assumed it was hers because she spent money. And now she's turning the internet into a weapon." My jaw clenched. "I love my sister," Sophie continued, "but she's always been controlling. She likes things on her terms. She paid for it, yes, but not because anyone forced her to. She did it because she wanted to feel important. And now that the attention isn't hers, she's trying to ruin our family's name." The comments started rolling in fast. Team Emily. Team Sophie. Factions forming. Some fans parroted her defense. "It's their land. End of story." Others called her out. "Girl, we saw the receipts." But then Sophie crossed a line. "And let's talk about why Emily stayed close to home," she said, narrowing her eyes like she was revealing a secret. "It wasn't about helping our parents. It was because she couldn't handle being alone. She's always been scared of living on her own. She clings to people. To things. That house was just another thing she thought would keep her from feeling empty." My chest tightened. That wasn't just false. It was cruel. And calculated. She wanted to discredit not just what I'd done but who I was. "She builds things," Sophie sneered. "But the second they don't go her way, she burns them down." I slammed my laptop shut. "That's it," I whispered. Rachel looked up from the kitchen. "She went there. She wants a war," I said. "Fine. Let's go." I opened my phone and went straight to my notes app. I drafted a post, this time not on Reddit. On Instagram. On my account. No hiding. No usernames. Just me. I uploaded a photo of the guest house under construction. Bare walls, beams exposed, dirt under my boots, sweat on my brow. Then a second photo. The spreadsheet where I logged every payment. Caption read, "I was quiet for too long. I built this home believing it would be mine. I paid for it. I planned every inch. My mistake was trusting that family loyalty would protect me more than a legal contract. I didn't cling to the house. I built it to finally stand on my own." I ended it with a quote from my grandfather, the only person who ever saw me without comparison. "People who take what isn't theirs will always say you gave it freely." I hit post. And I didn't flinch. Within an hour it had over 100,000 likes. Celebrities shared it. Lawyers reposted it. Even HGTV's main account left a comment. "You built something beautiful. And we believe in protecting the people who build." But the most unexpected thing? My mom called. Voicemail. "Emily," she said, voice soft, fragile, like the woman who used to tuck me in. "We need to talk. This has gone too far. People are calling the house. Threatening your sister. Please, come home. Let's fix this quietly." I stood there listening. And for a split second I felt like a child again, longing for the peace that never really existed. But then I remembered standing on that gravel watching Sophie hang her wreath on my door. I remembered the silence, the betrayal, and I knew there was no going back. Not now. Not ever. The funny thing about going viral is how fast the noise fades. One day you're trending. The next there's a new outrage, a new story, a new drama for the internet to dissect. By the end of the week, Sophie had turned her account private. My parents stopped calling. And the reporters stopped emailing once they realized I wouldn't sell them a scandal. What stayed though were the messages. Quiet ones. Private ones. From people I didn't know but who somehow knew me. My brother emptied our mom's retirement account. She still calls him her golden boy. I paid for my parents' mortgage. They left the house to my cousin because she has kids. Thank you for speaking up. I thought it was just me. I read every single one. Not because I was obsessed with being right, but because for the first time in my life I didn't feel alone in the fallout. I wasn't just the daughter who got used and discarded. I was one of many. And that mattered. A few weeks later I met with Blake again. He helped me file a lien on the property. No, I wouldn't get the house back. But now they couldn't sell it or refinance it without dealing with me. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. Sometimes, Blake said as I signed the final document, the only justice you get is making sure it doesn't happen again. I walked out of that office feeling, not whole, not healed, but solid. Grounded. Like I finally stopped waiting for someone to hand me peace and started building it for myself. A month after that I got an email from a retired couple, Bill and Jean. They followed me on Instagram. He used to be a contractor. She was a school principal. They had a little plot of land on the outskirts of Dripping Springs and wanted to build a guest cottage for rental income. Saw your post. We love your work. If you're ever open to it, we'd love to hire you for the project. No family strings attached. Just your vision and our trust. I said yes. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because the idea of starting over somewhere new, somewhere clean felt like breathing again. I drove out to their property on a crisp October morning. The land was quiet, wild with possibility. Bill handed me a coffee and said, "Whatever you build here, make sure it feels like it belongs to you too." I smiled. That's the only kind of house I build now. I stayed on that land for hours, sketching ideas, measuring sunlight, imagining where the windows would go. I didn't think about Sophie, or my parents, or what they were saying or not saying about me now. I thought about the walls I'd raise, the rooms I'd fill, the life I'd reclaim. That night I stood in the empty field, the wind brushing against my jacket, and I recorded one final video. No filter. No script. Just truth. Some people lose family and try to win them back. I lost mine and realized they were never really mine to begin with. And that's okay. Because you can find love where you least expect it. And sometimes, the home you build for yourself is the most sacred thing in the world. So if you're like me, if you've been erased, replaced, forgotten, don't shrink. Don't silence yourself. Stand up. Speak out. And start again. Somewhere you're wanted. Somewhere you belong. I posted it. Then I put my phone away. I looked out at the land one last time. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like something had been taken from me. I felt like something was waiting. Not just a house, but a future. One that was finally mine.